Hey, warriors! Before weakness breaks your body, it whispers to your mind. It tells you to stay in bed a little longer, to keep quiet when you should speak, to lower your head when life asks you to rise. It doesn't come with a shout. It comes with small surrenders, and day by day, piece by piece, it steals the fire from your chest until one morning you wake up and you don't recognize the person staring back at you. But here's what the Stoics understood, what most people never will. Weakness isn't the enemy. It's the raw material. It's the clay, waiting for you to mold it into strength. The moment you stop running from it, the moment you stand and face it with clear eyes and steady breath, everything begins to shift. The chains loosen. The ground beneath your feet feels solid again, and you start to remember who you were before the world taught you to shrink. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in Rome, once wrote in his private journals, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Think about that. A man who commanded legions, who could end lives with a single word, who lived with every comfort imaginable, still knew the greatest battlefield was the mind, and the greatest victory was mastery over self. So today, we're not here for shallow motivation, not the kind that makes you feel good for 5 minutes, then fades when the screen goes dark. We're here for something sharper, something honest. 7 Stoic laws that will not coddle you, but will cut through your excuses like light through darkness. Laws that don't just inspire, they transform, because these principles are not dead words in dusty books. They are alive. They've turned cowards into warriors, victims into victors, wanderers into men and women of purpose. They've outlasted empires, outlived kings, and they still breathe today because they speak to something unshakable in the human spirit. And here's what you need to know. The real you, the one buried under fear, comfort, and compromise, is still there. Maybe forgotten, maybe silenced, but not gone. And these 7 laws? They are the tools, the map back to yourself. But understand this before we begin. This journey demands something from you, not money, not connections, just honesty. The kind of brutal, uncomfortable honesty that most people spend their entire lives avoiding, because you cannot rebuild what you will not admit is broken. The Stoics believed philosophy wasn't just studied, it was lived. So as we walk through these 7 laws, don't just listen. Let them sink into your bones. Let them break what needs to be broken and rebuild what needs to rise. Now drop this in the comments. I choose strength over comfort. Number 1, the law of voluntary discomfort. Embrace the struggle before it embraces you. Let me tell you something that'll sound backwards until you understand it. The comfortable life is the most dangerous life, not because comfort itself is evil, but because it makes you soft in a world that demands strength. It makes you fragile in a universe that promises nothing but change. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher who advised emperors, practiced something radical. Once a month, he would sleep on a hard floor, eat the plainest food, wear the roughest clothes. Here was a man of immense wealth, choosing poverty. A man with every comfort, voluntarily embracing discomfort. Why? Because he understood a truth that most people learn too late. If you only know comfort, adversity will destroy you. The law of voluntary discomfort teaches you to choose your hard, because life will bring hard regardless. The question is, will you face it prepared or paralyzed? Think about your daily life right now. How many times do you choose the easy path, the comfortable conversation, instead of the necessary one, the familiar routine, instead of the path that stretches you, the warm bed, instead of the cold discipline of an early morning. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you're not maintaining yourself. You're diminishing yourself. You're practicing weakness. Your body was designed for adaptation. When you lift weights, you tear muscle fibers, the discomfort, the soreness, the burn. That's not damage. That's transformation. Your muscles rebuild stronger because you stressed them, and the same principle applies to your mind, your character, your entire being. Stress creates strength. Comfort creates fragility. But don't misunderstand this law. Voluntary discomfort isn't punishment. It's not misery for misery's sake. It's inoculation. It's preparing yourself for hardship. So when life does hit you, and it will hit you, you won't be shocked into paralysis. You'll be ready. You'll be resilient. You'll be unbreakable. Start small. Take cold showers. Not because hot water is wrong, but because choosing cold when you could choose hot builds your decision-making muscle. It proves that you can override your body's demands, that you're not a slave to comfort, that you are capable of choosing difficulty in service of strength. Fast occasionally, skip a meal, feel the hunger, not to harm yourself, but to remind yourself that you're not as fragile as your cravings suggest, that you can function, think, create, even when your body screams for gratification. This is mental toughness, transferable to every part of your life. Exercise when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it, because the days you least want to move are the days that shape you most. That's when you prove feelings don't control you. That motivation is optional. That discipline is everything. And yes, have the difficult conversations, the ones you've been avoiding, the ones that knot your stomach and sweat your palms. Because avoiding uncomfortable truths doesn't erase them, it only feeds them, until they grow into monsters. Voluntary discomfort means facing the hard truth now, instead of the impossible disaster later. Epictetus, born a slave, became one of history's greatest philosophers. He taught that we should regularly contemplate loss. Imagine losing what you love most, not to torment yourself, but to prepare your soul, to treasure what you have, while bracing yourself for the reality that nothing lasts forever. That kind of emotional discomfort makes you both grateful and unshakably strong. But here's the great lie of the modern world, that life's goal is maximum comfort, that success means eliminating struggle, that happiness comes from ease. Look around. The most miserable people are often the most comfortable. Why? Because comfort breeds weakness, and weakness breeds anxiety. When you know you're soft, every challenge feels terrifying. But when you practice voluntary discomfort, something miraculous happens. Challenges stop being threats. They become opportunities. Difficulties become tests. You're confident you'll pass, because you've been training, you've been preparing, you've been choosing hard, while everyone else chose easy. This law doesn't make you cold or harsh. It makes you capable. It makes you dependable. The one people turn to when everything falls apart, because they know you won't break. You've been bending yourself on purpose, so life can't snap you by accident. Here's your practice. This week, choose one area of voluntary discomfort, just one. Wake up an hour earlier. Have that conversation you've been dreading. Do the work you've been avoiding. Choose your hard. Embrace it. Let it remake you. Because weakness dies in discomfort, and strength is born there too. Number 2, the law of perception control. Your mind is the battlefield, not the world. The world isn't happening to you. It's just happening, and that single shift in understanding changes everything. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that should be tattooed on every human heart. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Read that again, slowly. Let it sink into the places where you've been blaming circumstances for your suffering. The law of perception control is perhaps the most liberating and the most difficult Stoic principle to master. It says that between every event and your response lives a space, a gap, and in that gap exists your power, your freedom, your entire life. Most people live as prisoners of their immediate reactions. Something happens. They react. Someone speaks. They snap back. An obstacle appears. They crumble. There is no space, no pause, only a chain reaction of emotions they call life. But you're not a domino. You're a human being with the godlike power of perception. You can choose what things mean. You can decide how to interpret events. You can control the only thing that truly matters, your inner world. Now, let me be clear about what this isn't. This isn't toxic positivity. This isn't pretending bad things are good. This isn't gaslighting yourself into believing suffering doesn't exist. The Stoics weren't naive. They lived through plagues, wars, betrayals, and deaths. They knew suffering intimately, but they also knew something profound. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. A loss occurs, a failure happens, a rejection arrives. That's pain, that's reality. But suffering is the story you tell about the pain, the meaning you attach, the catastrophic narrative you construct. Someone criticizes your work. That's a fact. One sentence. But your mind, it writes a novel. They think I'm incompetent. I'll never succeed. Everyone sees me as worthless. The criticism was one sentence. Your suffering is the story you built around it. Perception control means catching that process, stopping the story mid-construction and asking, is this the only way to see this situation? Maybe the criticism contains useful feedback. Maybe the person is projecting their own pain. Maybe they're right about one thing, but wrong about everything else. Maybe this is exactly what you needed to grow. The event hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has. And in that shift, the suffering disappears, not because you lied to yourself, but because you freed yourself from your own destructive narrative. Traffic makes you late for an important meeting. You can't control the traffic. You can't control time, but you can control whether you sit there in rage or in calm, whether you arrive defeated or centered. The traffic is the same, but your experience radically different. Epictetus told his students, someone insulted you. That's their action, their choice, their character. What's yours? How you respond. He wanted them to see that most of what we think controls us only has the power we give it. Here's your practice. Start treating your thoughts like clouds. They float across the sky of your mind. You notice them, but you don't grab onto them. A thought appears. I'm not good enough. There it is. A cloud. You don't have to board it. You don't have to turn it into identity. It's just weather. This takes practice, because your brain is wired for threat detection. It catastrophizes. That helped your ancestors survive predators. But today, it floods you with stress over an email. Your brain treats words on a screen, like a lion in the tall grass. Perception control means retraining your mind. When anxiety rises, pause. Ask yourself, am I in actual danger right now? Or am I building disasters in my imagination? Almost always, it's the latter. You're safe right now. You're breathing. The disaster, hypothetical. The anxiety, optional. The Stoics had a practice called the view from above. When overwhelmed, they zoomed out. Imagine yourself from the sky, your city, your country, the whole planet. In that cosmic perspective, how massive is this problem really? Not minimized, but right-sized, clear, instead of magnified by fear. Most suffering comes from resisting reality. Life delivered something you didn't want, and you argue with reality, as if your protest could change the past. But reality, undefeated, it wins every argument. The Stoics embraced this with amor fati, love of fate, not resignation, not passivity, but a fierce acceptance of what is, because that's where power lives. You can't change what happened, but you can always change what you do next. Here's what happens when you master perception control. Life stops happening to you. You stop being a victim. You become the author. Two people can live the same day, yet live completely different lives. Not because circumstances differ, but because perception does. One sees obstacles, another sees opportunities. One sees betrayal, another sees truth revealed. One sees failure, another sees feedback. Same events, different minds, different lives. Your mind is the battlefield where weakness dies or survives. Not your circumstances, not the world. Your mind. So fight the right battle. Stop trying to control the world. Start controlling yourself. Stop demanding life to change. Start changing how you interpret life as it is. That is where strength is born. Not from controlling events, but from mastering your response. That's unshakable. That's freedom. That's power. Drop this in the comments. I control my mind, and therefore I control my life. Number 3, the law of negative visualization. Prepare for loss to appreciate life. Here's a truth most people run from. Everything you love will end. Everyone you cherish will leave through distance, change, or death. Every possession you own will break, decay, or be taken. Every moment will slip into memory, and even memories will vanish with time. Most hear this and shiver. They call it depressing. But the Stoics? They called it wisdom. They called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, and they believed it was one of the most powerful tools for living fully. This law isn't about pessimism. It's not about walking through life in fear. It's about preparation and appreciation, working together. It's about strengthening yourself for loss, while sharpening your gratitude for what is still here. Seneca lived this practice. Before journeys, he would imagine shipwrecks and robberies. Before sleep, he would picture disaster striking by morning, not because he was paranoid, but because he was awake, because he wanted to be ready if fate turned cruel, and grateful when it didn't. Here's what happens when you don't practice this. You live in assumption. You assume your health will last. Your parents will always be there. Your partner will always stay. Your opportunities will wait for you. But assumption makes you weak. When loss finally comes, and it always comes, it hits like a storm you never saw building. And assumption does something worse. It kills gratitude. What you assume will last forever. You stop seeing. Your partner becomes background. Your health becomes noise. Your blessings become invisible. Negative visualization shatters that blindness. It reminds you, nothing is guaranteed. And in that reminder, you finally see. You see the value of every face, every breath, every chance, right now. Imagine this. Today is the last day you'll see someone you love. What would you say? How would you look at them? How deeply would you listen? Now realize, it could be. Any day could be. That's not morbid. That's reality. And reality is the only place where love truly lives. Marcus Aurelius would visualize his own death, his last day, his last breath, not to sink into despair, but to sharpen his focus, to ask himself, if today were my last, what matters most? And then to live like the answer mattered. Most people avoid death because they think it's too sad, but avoiding death makes you waste life. Contemplating death makes you value it. When you know something ends, you cherish it. You live it fiercely. You stop postponing joy. Stop saving love for later, because later may never come. Here's your practice. Once a week, sit in silence. Visualize losing something you treasure, your health, your home, your family, your work. Feel the weight of that loss, as if it already happened. Then open your eyes and realize it's still here, still yours, still alive. That recognition should flood you with gratitude. And when loss eventually comes, you won't be destroyed. You'll hurt, yes, but you'll stand, you'll continue, because you've already rehearsed it, you've already prepared. This law kills weakness by killing assumption. Weakness thinks life is permanent. Strength knows it's fragile. Weakness is shocked by loss. Strength is ready. Weakness takes things for granted. Strength savors every moment. And here's the paradox. Thinking about loss doesn't drain your joy. It multiplies it. Because when you embrace impermanence, you stop sleepwalking through life. You live in the fierce beauty of now. Number 4. The law of internal locus. You are the cause, not the effect. There comes a moment in every life, a quiet crossroad where you must decide. Will I be a leaf, blown wherever the wind carries me? Or will I be the wind itself, shaping the path forward? This choice determines everything that follows. The law of internal locus is simple, but brutal. It says, you are not the effect of the world. You are the cause of your experience. Epictetus, a man who tasted both chains and freedom, taught there is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things beyond the power of our will. He divided life into two realms, what is within your control and what is not, and he declared peace belongs only to those who know the difference. But here's where most people stumble. They spend 90% of their energy on what they cannot change: the weather, the past, the opinions of others, the economy, politics, traffic. They wrestle ghosts, and then wonder why they feel powerless. You can't control what people think of you, but you can control your character. You can't control outcomes, but you can control your effort. You can't control opportunities arriving, but you can control being ready when they do. You can't control someone's love, but you can control being worthy of love. Weakness always points outward. I'm stuck because of them. I failed because of that. I'm unhappy because of this. Strength points inward. What's my move? What's within my reach? What action can I take right now? Look at your own life. The areas where you feel most powerless, most frustrated, most stuck. Chances are you're fixated on what you can't control. You want someone to change. You want life to bend to your expectations. And you suffer because reality will never kneel to your demands. But shift the question. Stop asking, why won't they change? Start asking, what can I do here? And suddenly, doors open. Options appear. Power returns. Someone mistreats you. You can't control their choices, but you can control your boundaries. You can control your response. You can walk away. That is power. Your job feels empty. You can't rebuild the company overnight, but you can sharpen your skills. You can search for better. You can decide how to use your free time. That isn't helplessness. That's strategy. The moment you stop waiting for the world to shift and start shifting yourself, you stop being a victim. You become an agent. And here's the paradox. When you control yourself, the world often changes too. People respond differently when you show up differently. Opportunities appear when you prepare for them, not because you force the world, but because you mastered the one thing you truly command. But first, you must surrender the fantasy of control, the fantasy that you can make people into who you want them to be, that you can dictate outcomes by force of worry, that life will bend to your expectations. These illusions feel comforting, but they are prisons. Real power is raw, direct, undeniable. Accept fully what you cannot change. Take radical responsibility for what you can. You didn't choose the circumstances of your birth, but you can choose what you build from them. You can't rewrite the past, but you can choose whether it changes you or teaches you. You can't prevent every hardship, but you can choose whether hardship breaks you or builds you. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire drowning in war, plague, and betrayal. He couldn't control any of it, but he could control Marcus, his thoughts, his choices, his character, and because of that, he became a light in the darkness. What about you? Where are you bleeding your energy into battles you cannot win? Where are you pointing outward instead of inward? Here's your practice. For 1 week, listen to the phrase you use most, I can't because. Every time you hear yourself say it, stop, reframe it. I haven't figured out how yet, but what can I control? Because even in the darkest conditions, choice remains. Even in chains, dignity remains. Even in defeat, response remains. Viktor Frankl, survivor of the Nazi camps, proved this truth. He could not control the guards, the hunger, the cruelty, but he could control his inner world, his meaning, his humanity, and by mastering that, he carried light into history's darkest night. The world will always be imperfect. People will always fail. Circumstances will always surprise. But you are the constant, and if you master yourself, you'll never be powerless again. Drop this in the comments. I focus on what I can control and release what I cannot. Number 5. The law of memento mori. Remember you will die, so live while you're alive. Every breath you take is borrowed time. Every sunrise you see is a gift that millions never received. And every moment you waste is a piece of your finite life you will never get back. This isn't meant to scare you, it's meant to wake you up. Memento mori. Remember, you will die. The Stoics didn't whisper this phrase in shadows. They carried it openly. They engraved it on rings. They repeated it at meals. They lived with it daily, not because they were obsessed with death, but because they knew the truth most people spend their lives avoiding. Death is what gives life its meaning. Think about your days. How much time do you lose to distractions? How many hours sink into resentment, fear, or empty pursuits? How often do you push joy to tomorrow, delay your dreams, or avoid meaningful conversations because you assume you have time? You don't have time. None of us do. You have this moment, maybe another, maybe 1,000 more, maybe none. The Stoics knew this intimately. Plague could take them tomorrow. Battle could end them today. They didn't have the luxury of pretending death was far away. But we do. We hide it in hospitals. We soften it with euphemisms. We scroll past it on our feeds and convince ourselves it belongs to someone else. But here's the cost of that denial. When you forget you're going to die, you forget to live. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think. Imagine filtering every decision through that lens. Would you spend hours scrolling? Would you cling to that grudge? Would you waste today worrying about tomorrow? Death isn't a problem to solve, it's a reality to embrace. And when you embrace it, you don't become dark, you become alive. When mortality is real to you, the trivial falls away. Office politics shrink, status games turn hollow, petty arguments dissolve into dust. What remains is what matters: connection, growth, contribution, love, creation, meaning. Seneca practiced this awareness for years. He wanted death to find him living, not hiding. And when it finally came, when Nero ordered his execution, Seneca faced it with calm. He had rehearsed. He had lived well. Death held no terror. Most people live the opposite. They fear death. While wasting life, they dread the end. While refusing to embrace the present, that's the ultimate tragedy. So here's your practice. Once a day, face your death. Not abstractly, concretely. Picture the moment. Who will be there? What will you regret? What will you wish you had done? Then ask yourself, if tomorrow were my last day, am I living right today? If the answer is no, then you're living wrong. Memento mori doesn't make you reckless. It makes you intentional. It makes you ruthless about what matters. It makes you brave, because cowardice makes no sense when your time is short. Want to start that dream? Start now. Want to repair that bond? Today. Want to create something that matters? This moment. Because the clock is already running, and it doesn't pause for hesitation. The Stoics asked each morning, if this were my final day, how would I want to spend it? Not in panic, but in purpose. And when they lived like that, fear dissolved, anxiety faded, because anxiety lives in the future. Death awareness pulls you into now. Steve Jobs, facing cancer, said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever found to help me make the big choices in life." Because almost everything, expectations, pride, fear of failure, falls away in the face of death, leaving only what truly matters. So I'll ask you, what truly matters to you? Not what society demands, not what your parents expected, not what your friends think. What matters to you? Memento mori doesn't depress you. It makes you desperate in the best way. Desperate to love deeply, to create boldly, to live fully, because the clock is ticking, and you know it. You have one life, this one, happening right now. Every second that passes is gone forever. Every day delayed is erased from your total. The math is brutal and simple. You are dying. You always have been. The only question is, will you live first? Stop waiting. Stop postponing. Stop building regrets for your deathbed. Live like someone who knows the truth. This ends. Therefore, this matters. Therefore, now matters. Therefore, you matter. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I remember my mortality to honor my life. Number 6, the law of self-sufficiency. Your peace cannot depend on external validation. There's a hunger that lives inside most people, not for food, but for approval, for recognition, for validation. They walk through life holding out an invisible cup, hoping someone will drop something into it. A little praise, a little love, a little acknowledgement that they matter. But here's the tragedy. That cup has no bottom, and they spend their entire lives thirsty. The law of self-sufficiency teaches something radical, something freeing. Your worth is not up for a vote. Your peace cannot hinge on someone else's approval. Your happiness cannot be tied to circumstances you cannot control. You must become whole within yourself, not through arrogance, but through deep self-knowledge and acceptance. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control, and what lies more beyond your control than other people's opinions." You can be excellent and still be criticized. You can be kind and still be misunderstood. You can give your best and still be rejected. If your peace depends on applause, you've handed your soul to forces you'll never control. Look at how much energy you spend trying to manage perceptions, the carefully staged posts, the anxiety before sharing your work, the devastation when someone disapproves. You are letting strangers dictate your peace. you are letting shadows become your prison guards. Here's the truth that sets you free. Most people aren't thinking about you at all. They're too busy worrying about themselves. The spotlight you think is on you? It isn't. You're performing for an audience that isn't even watching. And even when they are watching, their opinions are about them, not you. Their wounds, their filters, their values, their standards. Criticism is data about them, not a verdict on you. Praise is the same. The Stoics knew this, which is why they lived by an internal compass. They measured themselves not by applause, but by virtue. Marcus Aurelius never asked, "Did they approve of me today?" He asked, "Was I just? Was I kind? Did I do my duty?" That shift changes everything. When validation comes from within, you cannot be shaken. Success doesn't inflate you. Failure doesn't destroy you. You remain steady, stable, free. But self-sufficiency runs deeper than ignoring opinions. It also means not needing perfect conditions to be at peace. Most people live with a list. I'll be happy when I get the promotion. I'll be at peace when I find a partner. I'll be confident when I lose the weight. I'll be fulfilled when I achieve success. But conditions change, circumstances fail, which means so does their happiness. The Stoic says, I can be at peace regardless. I can find joy in simplicity. I can be complete within myself. Seneca lost wealth, lost status, faced exile, and in exile, he wrote some of his deepest work, because his contentment wasn't built on fortune. It was built on philosophy, on virtue, on what could never be taken. Here's your practice. Spend one day seeking zero external validation. Don't check likes. Don't fish for compliments. Don't explain yourself. Don't look for applause. Just do what you know is right. And notice how uncomfortable it feels. That discomfort reveals where you are still chained. Notice how often you betray yourself for approval, how often you silence your truth to avoid judgment, how often you perform instead of being. That is the cage you build for yourself. Self-sufficiency breaks the cage. It doesn't make you cold. It doesn't make you distant. It makes you free. Because then, you can love without clinging. You can share without begging. You can care without being enslaved. Two broken halves looking for completion will only wound each other deeper, but two whole people, self-sufficient, strong within themselves, can create something unshakable. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop chasing validation, it begins to find you. Because people are drawn to those who don't need approval, to those who stand steady in themselves. The world will always shift. People will always disappoint. Circumstances will always change. But if your peace is built on self-sufficiency, on virtue, on character, on inner stability, then no storm can move you. The winds rage, the world shakes, but your center holds, and that is true freedom. Number 7, the law of purposeful action, movement with meaning or stillness with peace. There's a restlessness in modern life. People moving constantly, but going nowhere. Busy, but not productive. Active, but not purposeful. They confuse activity with progress, movement with meaning. They're running on a treadmill, exhausting themselves, yet remaining in the same place. The law of purposeful action says this: every action should serve a purpose aligned with your values. Or you should rest. No middle ground, no mindless motion, no activity for activity's sake. Either move with intention or be still with peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Simple, clear. Every action filtered through two questions. Is this right? Is this necessary? If the answer is no, why are you doing it? Most people fill their lives with meaningless actions, scrolling for hours, gossiping about people who don't matter, saying yes when they mean no, staying busy to avoid feeling, moving to escape thinking. They fear stillness, because stillness forces confrontation with themselves. But the Stoics embraced both purposeful action and purposeful rest. When they acted fully. When they rested without guilt. Energy is finite, attention is limited. A life of mindless motion is a wasted life. Look at your daily actions. How many align with your values? How many moves do you make toward the person you want to become? And how many are just filler? Noise masquerading as productivity. Motion pretending to be progress. The question isn't, am I busy? The question is this meaningful? You can fill every hour and still feel hollow. Purposeful action requires clarity. Clarity about what truly matters to you. Seneca warned, people treat life like it's infinite, but time like it's worthless. Who guard their property, but waste their days? Why are you so careless with the one thing you can never get back? Every moment spent on purposeless motion is a moment stolen from meaningful action. Here's your practice. For 1 week before anything, pause and ask, why am I doing this? What purpose does this serve? Does it align with my values? If the answer isn't clear, don't do it. This will be uncomfortable. You'll see how much of your life is avoidance, distraction, habit without thought, performance without purpose. But that discomfort is the pain of waking up. And waking up is always uncomfortable, but it beats sleepwalking through life. Purposeful action also means saying no a lot. To opportunities that drain you, to requests that waste your energy, to distractions that pull you from what matters. Every yes to purposeless things is a no to meaningful things. The Stoics were masters of elimination. They focused on what mattered and ruthlessly cut everything else. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire, yet still found time for philosophy, writing, contemplation. Not because he had more time than you, but because he was intentional with it. Rest isn't laziness. Rest is preparation, recovery, necessary. You don't have to be productive every moment. You don't have to monetize every hobby. You don't have to optimize every hour. You can rest. You can be still. You can do nothing, and do it purposefully. Purposeful action means when you work fully. When you rest fully. When you are with someone, you are fully present. When you are alone, you are fully alone. No half measures, no divided attention, no pretending. This intentionality transforms everything. Work becomes effective. Rest becomes restorative. Relationships deepen. Solitude becomes meaningful. Epictetus taught, every action is a vote for the person you are becoming. Every choice is a statement of your values. There is no neutral. You are always moving in a direction. The question is, are you choosing it, or is it choosing you? When you master purposeful action, you stop being busy and start being effective. You stop exhausting yourself on meaningless motion and invest yourself in meaningful progress. You are no longer doing 1,000 things poorly. You are doing the right things well. You are no longer spread thin. You are concentrated on what matters. And concentration creates results, creates meaning, creates a life worth living. So here we are. 7 laws, 7 principles that have survived empires, outlasted kingdoms, and continue transforming lives for over 2,000 years. Not because they are easy, but because they are true. Not because they promise comfort, but because they deliver strength. If you stayed present, if you didn't skip, something in you was ready to stop being weak, ready to stop making excuses, ready to meet the person you're capable of becoming. These aren't just ideas to admire, they are tools to use. The law of voluntary discomfort teaches you to choose your hard. The law of perception control shows you your mind is the battlefield. The law of negative visualization teaches gratitude and preparation. The law of internal locus puts power back in your hands. The law of memento mori gives life urgency. The law of self-sufficiency frees you from needing approval. The law of purposeful action ensures every moment builds the life you want. But here's what matters now. What will you do with this? Knowledge without application is just entertainment. Understanding without action is just comfort. The strong version of you, the capable version, the version that can handle whatever life brings, is built through practice, through daily decisions, through choosing difficulty over comfort, through controlling your mind, through appreciating what you have, through focusing on what you can control, through living like time is limited, through moving with purpose. Start small, choose one law, master it, then move to the next. The Stoics didn't just teach philosophy, they lived it. Through wars, plagues, betrayals, triumphs, losses, highs and lows, it sustained them. It gave them strength when everything else failed. It can do the same for you. Your weakness isn't permanent, it's a habit. Habits can be broken. Your strength isn't gone, it's buried. And what's buried can be excavated. These 7 laws are your tools. Use them, practice them, let them remake you. The Stoics believed the best revenge against weakness was becoming strong. The best response to difficulty was becoming capable. The best answer to suffering was becoming resilient. And so will you. Starting now, starting today. You are not a victim of circumstances. You are not a prisoner of your past. You are not defined by your current weakness. You are a work in progress, and the work continues. Every day, every choice, until weakness dies and strength remains. Welcome to the real you. The journey starts now.